Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining me today. So, we're going to talk about Hovis, and this is a piece of work we've done recently with our partners, VCCP. And we're going to talk about how you find the strength baked into your brands. Hopefully today you can pull out a couple of nuggets that you can take back to your organization around finding the strength that is baked into whatever you do. Now, this talk has all the makings of a very beige sandwich and not very on theme of less boring. But you've got a heritage brand talking about history and bread is a bit boring. But no, this won't be boring. And most brands aiming to reconnect with their younger audiences would have thrown out what their brand was known for. But for us at Hovis, with our 140 years of history, that solution wasn't to throw it all out. It was to keep it and nurture it and sustain it. And instead of a weight that dragged us down, it became our biggest strength. So during this process I'm going to take you on today, we've really reimagined the legacy of Hovis. And we've transformed something that could have been stale and could have been boring into something that has been really deeply poignant and deeply relevant. And that's our new Strength Baked In campaign. So Hovis, working on Hovis is sometimes a challenge because Hovis has got great nostalgia. And I think there's a lot of young people in this audience. So you might not know this ad, but this is one of the most famous ads that's ever been on British TV, directed by Ridley Scott. Okay, and it's one top ad ever in numerous Channel 5 documentaries about advertising. And that nostalgia, sometimes it can lead to inertia because where do you go from this? Where do you go from this piece of work? As I said, Hovis has got this rich heritage and deep emotional connection with the British public. It's a brand steeped in nostalgia. But we'd not been showing up. We hadn't been on screens for years, and consumers changed. Consumers had evolved, and they changed, and the brand had lost its little bit of way. And again, building to that, our strong heritage, it turned into a little bit of inertia. We had to start moving again. And really, to do that, we had to behave like a challenger. And Hovis is a challenger brand. It's not the brand leader. It's a big heritage brand that is not the brand leader. So how do you then reframe that brand to behave much more like a challenger? And we knew that to relaunch one of Britain's most iconic brands, we couldn't rely on conventional methods. We couldn't have a boring process. As a team, we had to be certain that the process we were going to go on was interesting, was new, was unique, was edgier than previous processes. And therefore, the creative work in the end would come out in that way as well. So we developed a fresh recipe. So I'm going to take you through that recipe today. And our solution was a radically different approach to really transform Britain's most traditional brand. But it's a fresh recipe, but it still honored our heritage. And it really created a clear path into the future and also acted as a way to galvanize the organization, because what we developed wasn't just a consumer-facing message. It also leads us to where we develop our product pipelines. It talks about our people, the people that bake our bread. Okay, so step number 1. Don't reinvent, recommit. So quite often on brands, there's often clues around the history of the brand, and around what's made that brand successful. And that's what we searched for in Hovis. And we resisted that urge to kind of create the new and the different, and we instead uncovered familiarity as our secret weapon. It's then what you do with it that counts. So we didn't need a new idea on Hovis. We just needed to recommit and remember what we stood for, remember what made us famous, remember what made us good. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is in the name, okay? So Hovis literally means strength. I could talk for about 15 minutes at least on the background behind this and how Hovis became named Hovis. I'm not going to do that today, but it's linked into our founder, Richard Stoney Smith, back in 1886, and this name was invented. So Hovis it's our name, it's who we are, and it's what we do. And therefore, our line that I'll come on to shortly around strength baked in, it's really anchored in, it's hooked into the DNA of our brand, because Hovis is hominis vis, which in Latin translates to strength of man. And it's been around since the 1800s, but we never, ever really tapped into it since around about 1950, okay? And when you think about bread and the bread category, the bread aisle, quite often shops are spending around 2 seconds making their decision, making their purchase. So your name is really all you've got, because it's kind of blink and you miss it and you've gone and you've gone to a different part of the store. So Hovis, strength of man, it perfectly sums up what we've always stood for. And Hovis, we've always baked a bread of substance. The whole reason Hovis was invented was to put substance into the nation, into flour, substance into the nation. And that's fueled people in this country for over 100 years. But also it's a role that the brand has played within society. It's a role that the brand has played culturally as well. It's played this role of strength. And it played this role of strength back in the 1950s, so back in the 1940s, sorry. So it's helped the nation through every chapter. In the Second World War, Hovis was donating Spitfires in World War II. So that's the Spitfire named Tom on his fist. It's the one that Hovis donated. All the way through to the work we're doing now, we're helping to keep Britain fed in terms of food banks. We do a lot of work with food banks running out of our bakery network across the country. So one enduring truth that the brand has had over its history is how it's supported the nation, how it's been there for the nation. So we're recommitting to our timeless values on Hovis. We're recommitting to our name. We're recommitting to what the brand stands for. And then what made this idea even more compelling was how it connected to a real broad cultural truth, okay? And food and food trends and habits and consumers have evolved loads. And that evolution seems to accelerate and this gets faster and faster and faster. You know, back in the 1950s, there was probably one event every 10 years. Microwave ovens in the 80s, the Atkins diet in the 90s, but now it seems like every year there's an evolution of the food industry. But bread and the humble strength and bread as a staple, it hadn't changed, and it's kind of been forgotten about by the nation. But bread is this everyday symbol of comfort, resilience, and everyday strength. If you've got an upset tummy, an upset stomach, the first thing you turn to is bread. We had PG tips on here earlier before. Tea and toast is the ultimate comfort. The first thing you offer people if they're in distress. And also bread is everyday strength. As a nation, we've been brought up on packed lunches of sandwiches. Yeah, sandwich to help you get on with your day. Bread gives that everyday strength. And that had kind of been forgotten about in all the various food trends. And we wanted to stand for that again and bring back that authenticity. And this really helped us focus our creative strategy. We recommitted to our values in terms of what Hovis has always stood for. This strength in community, this authenticity, and then this resilience, in that we've been around for years, so we must be good, we must be resilient, we must be strong. So that's step one of the recipe. So then we move on to step two. Stale research makes for stale work. As we went through this process, we didn't have a great deal of resources. But those finite resources helped us drive a less boring process because we had to do things differently. And also we knew from the start of this project that playing it safe just wasn't an option because Hovis was in decline. It hadn't been showing up for a good few years. We needed to do something that would give us a bit of a jolt. Okay, so playing safe wasn't an option. So we had to take a bit of a different challenger approach. It was our only option. And we really wanted to kind of break out of the echo chamber of focus groups and embrace some unconventional methods to understand whether this idea we'd had on strength linked into our name was resonant culturally with people. So we had to rethink about how we found the truth and then where to look for it. So we took one of our nation's most traditional brands and really thought about a different way of finding that truth, proving our strategy and giving us confidence then to go and take this notion of strength into our creative. So we looked beyond the usual research playbook and we tapped into modern Britain through the lens of journalism. We partnered with Vice journalist Clive Martin, and Clive really helped us to go deeper and really helped us to understand what strength really means for Britain. and also helped us understand whether it was relevant and whether it was important, and really helped us understand what it looks like in Britain today. And we started in Nottingham, and Nottingham, we've got a big bakery in Nottingham. It's one of our biggest in the country, so it's a home to one of our biggest Hovis bakeries. And we met people really at the heart of their communities. People at the heart of their communities who are providing strength for their communities, running food banks, leading community centres, working very hard every day to keep communities going. And we spoke to these people to understand what strength means for them, and then also whether it was relevant that Hovis could take this position. And the aim was to tap into this real mood of modern Britain, and not through focus groups, not through kind of focus groups with people repeating what the others are saying and agreeing and all these things that we see sometimes in focus groups, but through lived experiences of people on the ground. And these stories were really eye-opening. I'd say this was our real aha moment, where we'd done a lot of internal navel gazing to come up with strength, because it's in our name. It makes a lot of kind of logical sense. When you're working in a business, it's quite an easy sell, because you go and tell your boss you're working on a new advertising idea, and guess what? It's linked back into our name. It's quite an easy sell. And this was our real aha moment, where we thought, hold on a minute, we've actually really got something here, because the stories that we heard. And I think these are stories we'd only got to through journalism, because Clive had this wonderful skill of going deeper and deeper and deeper. And because he was talking to the people in their real life situations, it really helped them open up. And their stories revealed a quiet, powerful resilience. And the general notion that we got is Britain is a little bit broken. And I don't mean that in terms of a red top tabloid headline that you might see every day. But I mean that in a sense of, if you want anything doing in Britain, you're better off doing it yourself. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And our journalistic approach gave us this kind of this honest, unfiltered insight that the traditional research couldn't deliver. And then that aha moment, those insights became really the foundation in terms of accelerating then everything we did. It gave us a confidence to really go forwards. And strength then really was established as the heart of the creative strategy. And this notion of this enduring strength of Hovis and the nation as true today as it was in 1886. And I'll give you some examples of what that means. But if you think back to last summer, there were lots of riots on the streets. Southport was one area where we saw those riots. And 24 hours afterwards, it wasn't local government, it wasn't the council, anything like that, cleaning up the streets. It was local communities, and that's where that picture's from. If you think back to the COVID pandemic, people couldn't afford to eat. It was communities that set up food banks. It's this notion of Britain's not kind of broken, it's not kind of falling apart at a very high level, or you can discuss that, but it's that notion of on the ground, if you want anything doing as a community, you've got to do it yourself. So that was our untraditional approach to understanding whether this idea of strength had legs. Okay, we come on to step 3. This is always going to be a challenge. Hovis has this really rich treasure chest of stuff to play with as a marketeer, but knowing what to keep, what to kill, and what to rebuild was very important, because the important thing that we wanted to do was not kind of tell consumers what they already knew. We wanted to reframe it a little bit and try and make it a bit more relevant for today's consumer. And again, our easy solution on Hovis would have been to rinse and repeat, to have someone pulling a wheelie on a bike or something like that, or taking up a hill or something, somebody going into a baker's. That would have been the easiest option. But we didn't want to just remind people of our heritage, because it is a great heritage, but we wanted to bring it firmly and relevantly into today. And it wasn't just about getting all our distinctive assets out there again. This was about choosing which ones we were going to use and then being very simplistic about how we use them. And I'll talk about simplicity again shortly. Because playing back what consumers already knew wasn't going to win the day for us. We had to show them how we were still relevant for today, not yesterday. And really, this case is a lesson for not simply stopping short of what is true for our brands, okay? But discovering how to freshly reimagine those truths in the context of today to make them relevant for today. And this really meant for us having the confidence to challenge convention and question just some of the brand's sacred cows. The amount of times I went through various stakeholder meetings in the business saying, what about this? What about that element? Because we've got 9 or 10 things we could include in our advertising. And you then got to explain why and why not, and so on and so forth. But keeping hold of that simplicity and then questioning sacred cows, but then sternly defending which ones you're taking forward is very, very important and a real art. And what we did, basically, we threw out our existing end line. So our end line that we've had for many years now, as good today as it was, I can't even remember it, as good today as it's always been, we threw that away. And then the other part of Hovis advertising, and for those that have seen the boy in the bike advert, brass and a brass soundtrack, that mnemonic is incredibly important for Hovis. Dvorak's New World Symphony. You play that symphony and consumers, you talk to older consumers and they say Hovis straight away, okay? But we wanted to throw away our end line and we wanted to throw away Dvorak's symphony because they were too much of a nod to the past and we wanted a nod forwards. We wanted to, again, reinvent the brand a little bit and reimagine it. So for the campaign soundtrack, we kept with brass because brass is very important and consumers recognize Hovis in terms of brass. But luckily for us, Sam Fender, just released a new album, he had a track on there, a brass track that he did with the Easington Colliery. We developed our new end line, Strength Baked In. And it's an end line that not just talks about the emotional connection and communities, it's an end line that also talks about our product. Our product has strength baked in. Everything's a source of protein. Also talks about our organization. Our bakeries yesterday would have been very hot, around about 40 to 45 degrees, because in bakeries you have ovens. And we've got people in Hovis baking bread in those temperatures. We've got strong people, strong bakers. And then the important bit in all of this was embracing the radical act of restraint, keeping it simple. So with our single-minded strategy, we then had to be really simple in terms of choosing what to show, what not to show, and really be restrained in how we did that to let the creative breathe. And again, Hovis has got this spoil of riches, and we really wanted to zone in on the most powerful assets. And we're very fortunate on Hovis in that we've got a very unfair advantage. So these things are called ghost signs, and this is another 20-minute presentation. Hovis has got around about 60 of these up and down the country. And these signs are the fabric of their communities, the pillars of their communities. They've been there for years. And we had this unfair advantage to leverage, where these signs have seen it all. They've seen all kinds of life go by them day after day. So we had that to leverage. We also wanted to do this work in terms of make it a bit more of an authentic observational documentary. So the cast we've got, and I'll show the film in a minute, very little casting going on. Everything's street cast. This gentleman and his son live in that house there in front of the sign. We were very purposeful around being authentic in every aspect of the production, because that is the place we wanted to take as Hovis. We wanted to be that authenticity and really live up to the brand values. So, enough of me talking. I'm now just going to play the film. You can see what all these slides have led up to in terms of the final loaf of bread.
Wait till you get a bit older.
If these walls could talk, they'd say there's strength in all of us.
Excuse me. All right, I've made you this.
Hovis, strength baked in.
It's amazing. I've been looking at it all day.
So that's the film. So I'll quickly summarize. Our recipe to be less boring. Don't reinvent. If you can help it, recommit. Recommit to what you've got in your brand, in your business, whatever it is you're working on. Recommit to those authentic truths that made you good in the first place. But choose which ones you really go after. Think about how you can talk to consumers in a different way. Think about how you can infiltrate more into their lives and really get under the skin of what they're thinking. Knowing what to keep and what to kill and what to rebuild is so important, and being very choiceful within that and then really going for it. And then finally, embracing the radical active restraint. If I could show you the cutting room floor, we've got versions of this with full voiceovers. You've not noticed it's a pack shot. It's the first FMCG ad I've worked on without a pack shot. So, getting that restraint, giving the creative that room to breathe is so important. So finally, the final thought I'll leave you with. But in the fight against boring, the bravest thing that you can do is don't perform. Stop performing and just tell the truth. So with that, thank you very much.